So now let's move on to what happened with Beto O'Rourke. I haven't had the opportunity to talk about this yet, but Greg Abbott was doing some sort of a press conference right after the shooting in Uvalde, Texas, and he was surrounded by a bunch of other Texas government officials, and Beto O'Rourke sort of crashed their press conference and directly called out Abbott. Let's take a look at that video.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sit down. You're out of line and an embarrassment. Sit down and don't play this.
The next shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable. When you,
sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a bitch that would come to a deal like this to make a political issue. It's on assholes like you. Why don't you get out of here?
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts about this, Krystal. First of all, the main responses I've seen to this video from people on the right is, number one, stop making it political. That's what a lot of people say. Also, stop making it about you, Beto O'Rourke.
Yeah.
My response to that is very simple. Number one, it is political. It's already political. Guns is massively political. Even if you want to pretend like it's not, it is. And also, it is about him. He's running for governor of Texas.
Right.
And he wants to change the laws in regards to guns. Now, whether you agree or disagree with Beto on how far he'd go with guns is irrelevant. The thing is political, and it is about him in the same way it's about Greg Abbott.
Yeah.
So I don't, those points I think are really hollow and really dumb. Was he grandstanding? Yes. But sometimes grandstanding in theater is kind of what you want. When we were talking about force the vote, I supported force the vote, you supported force the vote. I was under no illusions that it was going to succeed. Maybe you give it a 1% chance or a 2% chance of succeeding. But the whole point was the theater is the point, because you'd get a rallying cry and you bring people to your side, and then you try to take that momentum and do something positive with it. And then the other thing I wanted to say is I want you to notice something. This is an area where Beto, and there are many other Democrats who genuinely and sincerely want to tackle this issue. Notice how aggressive they are when they actually care about something, and he's not bought by the NRA. This is a rare issue where Beto O'Rourke is not corrupt. So
yes,
he's freed up, since he doesn't have to worry about the donors on this one. He doesn't have to worry about, taking care of the people that fund him in his campaign. He genuinely is anti-gun. You see how aggressive Democrats can be when they're not held back by big money. You wouldn't see this kind of an action, them standing up to Wall Street or something and calling for more regulation. Yeah, you never see that.
Well, and it's actually the opposite. I mean, I actually believe, because Beto saw the aftermath of the shooting, the mass shooting in El Paso, I think that he has a genuine concern about this issue, because it's also not clear that it's like a political slam dunk in the state of Texas to make your campaign, make this big stand and make your campaign center around gun safety and gun control. Now, on the contrary, if it's not just he's not funded by the NRA, but I think, in terms of this being a political stunt, I think he probably suspects that he'll gain some grassroots donations from people around the country to help support his campaign for his stand against Greg Abbott here. And you know what? That's democracy. I'm perfectly fine with that. So, yeah, it is a political stunt. But you know what? Frankly, what Greg Abbott is doing there is also a political stunt. Pretending that he cares.
Well, it was worse than a political stunt, because he changed the laws in a bad direction.
Pretending he cares, pretending he's going to do something. This is the very same presser where he does this dodge about mental health and then gets asked about, well, are you actually going to do something about mental health? No. So, look, I don't want to hear about you're like, oh, the incivility, how could you? No, more politicians should be told to their face and forced to face the consequences of their bad policies. More politicians should be told to their face and have to deal with that in a public setting, the fact that they suck and they're useless and they have failed their population over and over again. So, yeah, it's a political stunt. But you know what? This whole theater that Greg Abbott has been performing is also a political stunt. If it takes Beto getting up there and sort of calling him on it in public, I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay, so a couple points. Number one, did my mic just fall? I think it was up, and then if that's not number 1 point, by the way, that was just a random side point. So Abbott changed the law to make it so younger people can buy guns, correct?
Yeah, handguns.
It was handguns in particular.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's already 18 to buy rifles there, correct?
So, okay. Now, the law that was most recently changed was making it easier for people, I think, without a license to carry handguns in public. That was the most recent change to the law.
So, bottom line is, there's a number of ways in which he's made gun laws more lax.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
For sure.
So, when people say to Republicans, they genuinely get all in their feelings when you're like, yeah, you're responsible for this. And they say, well, that's a cheap point. Obviously, I don't want the mass shooting to happen. Okay. But when you create more and more lax gun laws and you give, you have more guns in circulation as a result of that in more people's hands, it is a fact that more lax gun laws leads to more gun deaths. More guns, period, leads to more gun deaths. Understand something, guys. This isn't conjecture. That's a fact. I showed the charts on my show the other day where we have over 300 million guns in circulation in this country, and we're off the charts compared to every other country when it comes to mass shootings and gun deaths. We have 39,000 gun deaths. That's homicides, suicides, accidents, mass shootings, etc. So I would respect it if people were honest and they were like, yes, I'm in favor of lax gun laws because I value freedom more than the safety.
Agreed.
And so, yeah, I understand that the laws I support will lead to more death. It's like if somebody says, I'm so pro-freedom, I want to get rid of the seatbelts in the cars. And yeah, there's going to be more deaths from car accidents, but I'm okay with that because I support the freedom over the safety. At least then that's intellectually honest. But you have this BS argument of, no, more guns equals more peace because the good guys outnumber the bad guys. So if you arm everybody, the good guys keep the bad guys in check. That doesn't end up happening. That's just not how it works.
Yeah, I mean, I keep saying if more guns were the answer to violence, we would have the safest society on the planet by far. It is clearly not the answer. And so I agree with you. I think, look, it is a totally legitimate debate, and it's the type of debate that society should have about how you balance risk and freedom and regulation. And if your position is, listen, I understand this is going to lead to more deaths and more violence, but this culture and this ability to have, this particular way of life ultimately for me weighs more heavily, then okay, that's a legitimate position. I think you're wrong, but let's have that debate. And so instead they try to have it both ways by saying, actually, no, not only do I think this is great for freedom and does it, conform with my way of life, but I also think it's going to lead to more safety. And that part is just not true.
Factually wrong. It's just factually wrong.
To go back to Candace Owens and Fox News and all of that stuff, because that piece of it has kind of been taken off the table, like you really can't look at the situation, the number of police officers that were there, who were there immediately, the intense, look at the amount of the budget that goes in Uvalde to the police force and the type of gear that they had, and all of those things were in place that they have claimed would stop the horrors that we saw in Uvalde, Texas. That is kind of taken off the table. And so now they have to reach for all these other things about like, well, maybe we should have one door, and maybe we should have even, maybe the teachers should also be armed.
Ban doors.
Maybe we need to harden this one too about the, like, we've got to harden the schools. So it's just like the airports. These are the same people that like hate the airports and hate TSA in ordinary times. But now it's like, yeah, let's have the kindergartners go through a metal detector and also get a pat down every single day. So listen, I think that it's fine, and there is research already, and schools are designed, new schools are designed already to try to mitigate the dangers. This school, there's now more reporting, has been up to date in terms of their security procedures. They have drills. There's a local SWAT team that has done walkthroughs to try to prepare and respond to this scenario. But ultimately, if you have this level of violence and guns in your society, even the, best equipped, most hardened school is still going to be at risk.
Yeah. So now let me make my final point on this, is actually throwing a little curveball at everybody. Okay. I'm defending Beto here and what he did, but I actually don't even agree with him on his policy choice. He literally argued for gun confiscation in the last election.
Yeah, he's backed off of that now, by the way.
But
yeah.
I'm not, the point I want to make is, I'm arguing against the dishonesty of the entire conversation and the points against Beto that I think are shitty points. But on the substance of it, I don't even agree with him. But here's the thing. The thing that you have to reckon with if you have the position that I have, and I happen to fall, I think, where most Americans fall on this, is that, yeah, you're going to massively reduce the number of gun deaths, but we're still going to be way above and beyond any other developed country if you implement the reforms that I want to implement. So namely, I would have a one strike and you're out rule in a universal background check, or even the tiniest scintilla of something that could be a red flag, you're done. You're not getting a gun.
So what do you mean in terms of crimes committed, or do you mean in terms of other bizarre behavior that
everything,
gets flagged?
Anything.
Yeah.
Because the way the Second Amendment is written, it talks about you have a right to a weapon for a well-regulated militia. So this idea that there's an individual right to own any firearm you want, no questions asked, is just not true. So I would have that interpretation of the Second Amendment, and therefore I would say, look, a lot of these shooters, they go on Facebook like in the week leading up to it, and they're like, I am going to do a mass shooting now. And everybody around them was like, yeah, I kind of saw that one coming. This guy was sort of crazy. And then you look at it and you're like, well, how the fuck was he able to legally get a gun? So I would do something like that. One strike, you're out rule, red flag law, universal background check, ban the high capacity magazines. I mean, go down the list. Now, even an assault weapons ban, sometimes that drops below 50% in terms of how many Americans support it. Now it went way over 50% after this shooting. It's like 63 or something like that. So, but even if you implement all the reforms I want to implement, which are the basic reforms that we're talking about now, yeah, maybe you drop the number of gun deaths every year down from 39,000 to 17,000. But people like me should have to answer for that fact when somebody says, yeah, but if we're being honest here, if we ban the guns and confiscate the guns, then you'd have 0 gun deaths. And it's like, okay, that's accurate. That's true. But then you have a broader conversation, like you said, about balancing safety and security versus freedom.
Right.
And, you have to acknowledge that regulation, while in many respects it quote unquote works, it also is by definition sort of authoritarian, so you got to do a balancing act here of what's fair and what's not, and what do you allow and what do you not allow.
Safety is not the only value.
Correct. Right. That's my point I'm trying to make.
That we recognize in society. And I mean, we see that very clearly in our every day when you walk out of your door, you're taking some level of risk. When you get in your vehicle, you're taking some level of risk. And so it's not, especially during COVID, there sometimes was this mindset from liberals that like, safety is the only paramount consideration, and all this idea about like being able to go to your church or live your life or run your business is just ridiculous, and the only thing we should care about is safety. I just don't agree with that view, and most people do not live their lives like that is their view either. So again, these are the things that a society has to balance. But if you're Greg Abbott or you're a Republican media figure, right-wing media figure, and you're faced with this kind of massacre, you should have to answer for the fact that your position does contribute to a society that leads us to this place. And okay, if that's your position, that it's freedom above everything else, over any modicum of safety, including the most basic things like universal background checks that are supported by literally 90% of the public. You can have that position, but you should be prepared to justify it, even if it's like, annoying Beto O'Rourke in your face at a presser. And
the thing that frustrates people is that the debate in Washington and among politicians is completely disconnected from the will of the people. And I think mainly it's because the entire Republican Party is bought by the NRA, and a handful of Democrats are bought by the NRA too. And so they get to shift the debate on their terms and get what they want because they're the moneyed interest funding the politicians.
There's also, that is very true. There's also an asymmetry in the debate because overwhelmingly, the people who vote on this issue are the ones who are most stridently like no gun regulations whatsoever. They're the ones who are single issue voters on this. So it gives them disproportionate power, especially in Republican primaries.
Okay. And with that, let's go ahead and bring in Mac, also known as Good Politic Guy. He has an awesome YouTube channel, and Krystal and I are excited to have a little chat with him. We hope you guys enjoy.